In the last episode, the fate of our world hung in the balance as I, Lyra, stood face to face with the dark sorcerer, Zarin. His malevolent power had ravaged our lands, leaving destruction and despair in its wake. My friends, Kale and Arya, fought valiantly by my side, but even our combined strength seemed no match for Zarin's mastery of the ancient arts. The memories of that fateful day still haunt me. The scent of smoke and ash lingers, a constant reminder of the devastating cost of our struggle. I woke to the sound of screams, my heart racing as I scrambled to my feet. The world around me was ablaze, flames engulfing the remains of our once thriving city. I stumbled through the ruins, desperate to find my loved ones, but they were nowhere to be found. Suddenly, a faint cry pierced the air. I whipped around, my eyes scanning the inferno. And then I saw them, Kale and Arya, stumbling through the wreckage, their faces smudged with soot. We converged, our eyes locking in a shared moment of desperation. Without a word, we charged forward, our footsteps echoing through the desolate landscape. As we ran, the flames seemed to part, revealing a figure emerging from the heart of the blaze. Zarin, his eyes blazing with malevolent intent, sneered at us from the inferno's edge. "You fools," he spat, his voice like a crack of thunder. "You think you can defeat me? I am the master of this realm." I felt a surge of determination course through my veins. I would not let him win. I would not let our world burn. With a fierce cry, I launched myself at Zarin, my sword flashing in the flickering light. The battle raged on, our blades clashing in a blur of steel and fire. But even as I fought, I knew the truth: Zarin's power was too great, our chances of victory dwindling with every passing moment. I had to find a way to turn the tide, to exploit some hidden weakness in his armor. As I parried and riposted, my mind raced with strategies and tactics. Kale and Arya fought beside me, their movements fluid and precise. Together, we wove a dance of death, each blow aimed at Zarin's defenses. But the sorcerer would not be easily defeated. His magic raged on, a torrent of darkness that threatened to consume us all. I stumbled back, gasping for breath, as Zarin's power surged forward. Kale and Arya rallied to my side, their faces grim with determination. "We need to end this," Kale growled, his sword raised high. Arya nodded, her eyes flashing with a fierce intensity. "We create an opening, Lyra, you take him down." I nodded, my heart pounding in my chest. This was at our last stand, our final chance to reclaim our world. With a deep breath, I steeled myself for the ultimate challenge. I would not falter. I would not fail. The fate of our world hung in the balance, and I was ready to do whatever it took to save it. I focused on Zarin, my mind racing with a singular purpose: to find the weakness, to exploit the crack in his armor. The flames danced around us, casting eerie shadows on the ruined cityscape. Kale and Arya stood firm, their blades at the ready as I began to circle Zarin. The sorcerer sneered, his eyes gleaming with confidence. He thought he had won. He thought he had crushed our spirits, our will to resist. But I knew better. I knew the power of desperation, of love, of hope. And I knew that as long as I stood, as long as my friends fought by my side, we had a chance. I feigned a stumble, allowing Zarin to think he had the upper hand. His eyes flashed with triumph as he raised his hand, a bolt of dark energy coalescing around his fingers. Kale and Arya reacted instinctively, dashing to intercept the attack. Their blades clashed with the energy, sparks flying as they deflected the blow. Zarin snarled, his eyes narrowing in frustration. That was it, the moment I had been waiting for, the moment of distraction, of weakness. With a fierce cry, I launched myself at Zarin, my sword flashing in the firelight. The blade bit deep into the sorcerer's shoulder, but he barely flinched. The battle raged on, the three of us dancing around each other, our movements a blur of steel and magic. Zarin retaliated with a wave of darkness, but I dodged and weaved, using every trick I knew to avoid the attack. Arya joined the fray, her movements fluid and precise as she targeted Zarin's defenses. Kale fought alongside, his sword clashing with the sorcerer's in a spray of sparks. I seized the opening, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it, the moment of truth. With a final, desperate cry, I plunged my sword into Zaren's chest. The sorcerer's eyes widened in shock as he stumbled back, his magic faltering. The flames around us began to die, the darkness receding as Zaren's power waned. I stood tall, my sword still embedded in the sorcerer's chest as the city around us began to return to life. The screams of the wounded, the cries of the survivors, echoed through the silence. I felt a sense of hope, of triumph as I gazed upon the devastation. But then I saw a figure emerging from the shadows, a figure I had thought lost forever. Ira, I whispered, my heart skipping a beat. My sister, my twin, my friend. She stood before me, her eyes cold, her face twisted into a snarl. Lyra, she spat, her voice like venom. You fool, you think you've won. I felt a chill run down my spine as Ira raised her hand, a dark, swirling energy coalescing around her fingers. No, I whispered, my heart sinking. Ira, please. But it was too late. The darkness consumed me, and everything went black. Time seemed to slow as I charged forward, my sword flashing in the fading light of day. Zaren sneered at me, his eyes blazing with contempt, but I saw something else in their depths, a flicker of uncertainty, a glimmer of doubt. I pounced on it, my blade slicing through the air in a blur of steel and fire. Zaren parried, but I could sense the hesitation that told me I was on the right path. Kale and Arya worked in perfect sync, their movements fluid and precise as they created an opening for me to strike. I took advantage of it, my sword flashing downward in a powerful arc. Zaren raised his hand, a blast of dark energy shooting toward me, but I was ready, my own magic surging forward to meet it. The two forces clashed, a burst of light and sound that sent me stumbling back. I recovered quickly, my eyes locked on Zaren's face. He was growing weaker, his power waning with every passing moment. I sensed it, a subtle shift in the balance of the battle. You're weakening, I taunted, my voice low and even. You're running out of tricks, Zaren. He snarled, his face twisted with rage, but I saw the fear lurking beneath. He knew he was losing, and it was eating away at him. I took another step forward, my sword raised high. Zaren's eyes darted to the left, and in that moment I knew I had him. With a fierce cry, I launched myself at him, my blade flashing downward in a deadly arc. Zaren raised his hand, a feeble attempt to defend himself, but it was too late. My sword sliced through his defenses, striking true as it bit deep into his shoulder. Zaren's eyes widened in shock, his face paling as he stumbled backward. I stood tall, my chest heaving with exhaustion as Zaren crashed to the ground. The dark energy that had fueled his magic began to dissipate, the air slowly clearing of its noxious influence. Kale and Arya rushed to my side, their faces etched with relief and exhaustion. We stood together, our eyes fixed on the fallen sorcerer as the silence of victory descended upon us. But as we caught our breath, a strange sensation began to build, a thrumming energy that coursed through the air. It was faint at first, but grew in intensity until I felt it reverberating through every cell of my body. I turned to Kale and Arya, my eyes locked on theirs. "What's happening?" I whispered, my heart beginning to race once more. They shook their heads, their faces confused and concerned. And as we stood there, frozen in uncertainty, the world around us began to change. The flames that had ravaged our city began to die down, the smoke clearing to reveal a landscape transformed. The ruins of our once great city were gone, replaced by a lush, vibrant landscape that stretched as far as the eye could see. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I gazed upon this new world. It was beautiful, yet strange, and I knew that nothing would ever be the same again. The fate of our world had hung in the balance, and I had emerged victorious. But as I stood there, bathed in the warm light of this new world, I realized that our struggle was far from over. A new era had dawned, and I had become its champion. But what lay ahead, I had no idea. The air was thick with tension as I faced Zaren, my sword trembling with the weight of our world's fate. Kale and Arya flanked me, their presence a beacon of hope in the midst of chaos. We exchanged a fleeting glance, a silent understanding passing between us. This was at the moment of truth. With a collective roar, we charged forward, our blades flashing in the fiery light. Zarin sneered, his eyes blazing with malevolent intent, but I saw a glimmer of uncertainty lurking beneath. I seized on it, my sword slicing through the air with renewed determination. The battle raged on, our movements a blur of steel and magic. Kale and Arya worked in perfect harmony, creating an opening for me to strike. I seized the opportunity, my sword flashing toward Zarin's chest. The sorcerer parried, his eyes narrowing in surprise, but I sensed a hesitation in his movements. I pressed my advantage, my sword dancing around Zarin's defenses. Kale and Arya followed suit, their blades slicing through the darkness. The sorcerer stumbled back, his magic faltering, and for an instant I dared to hope. But Zarin was far from defeated. With a snarl, he unleashed a torrent of darkness, the air thickening with malevolent energy. I stumbled back, gasping for breath as Kale and Arya rallied to my side. We exchanged a desperate glance, our faces smeared with soot and sweat. We were running out of time. Zarin's power was too great, our strength waning with every passing moment. I drew a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. This was it, my final chance to save our world. With a fierce cry, I launched myself at Zarin, my sword flashing with a desperate intensity. The sorcerer sneered, his eyes blazing with contempt, but I saw a glimmer of fear lurking beneath. I seized on it, my sword slicing toward his heart. The air was thick with tension as our blades clashed, the outcome hanging in the balance. And then, in a flash of steel and magic, everything changed. Zarin's sword shattered, his eyes widening in shock as I plunged my blade deep into his chest. The sorcerer stumbled back, his magic faltering, and for an instant I felt a surge of triumph. But it was short-lived. Zarin's eyes locked on mine, a malevolent grin spreading across his face. "You fools," he spat, his voice like a crack of thunder. "You think you've won. My darkness will consume you all." As he spoke, his body began to dissolve, his magic spreading like a stain across the landscape. I stumbled back, horror creeping up my spine as Kale and Arya rallied to my side. We stared into the void, our faces pale with shock as the darkness spread, consuming everything in its path. I felt the weight of our world's fate crashing down around me, and I knew that our battle was far from over. In that moment, I realized that Zarin's defeat was not the end, it was only the beginning. The true enemy was not the sorcerer, but the darkness that lurked beyond. And I was the only one who could stop it. I charged forward, my sword flashing in the fiery light. Kale and Arya flanked me, their movements synchronized with mine as we converged on Zarin. The sorcerer sneered, his eyes blazing with malevolent power, but I sensed a flicker of uncertainty beneath his confident facade. "Now's our chance," Kale yelled, striking at Zarin's left flank. Arya mirrored the attack on the right, her sword slicing through the air with deadly precision. I launched myself at the sorcerer's center, my blade aimed at his chest. Zarin parried my blow with ease, but I sensed a hesitation, a slight wavering in his defense. I pressed forward, my sword clashing with his in a flurry of strikes. Kale and Arya redoubled their efforts, their attacks relentless as they sought to exploit the opening I had created. For a fleeting moment, Zarin stumbled back, his eyes widening in surprise. I saw my chance and took it, unleashing a powerful strike that sent his sword flying from his grasp. The sorcerer's eyes narrowed, his face contorted in a snarl of rage. "You may have bested me this time," he spat, "but my power will not be defeated so easily." With a wave of his hand, Zarin summoned a dark vortex that erupted from the earth, sending us flying backward. I landed hard, my sword slipping from my grasp as I struggled to rise. Kale and Arya rallied to my side, their faces set with determination. "We can't let him escape," Kale growled, his eyes fixed on the sorcerer. Zarin laughed, the sound like thunder on a stormy night. "You fools," he taunted, his eyes blazing with malevolent intent. "You think you can contain me? I am the master of this realm, and I will not be defeated." As he spoke, the darkness around us seemed to coalesce, taking shape as a massive creature of shadow and flame. The beast's eyes burned with an inner fire, its presence suffocating as it loomed over us. "We need to get out of here now," Arya yelled, her voice panicked. But it was too late. The creature's massive claws swiped down, sending us tumbling through the air. I landed hard, my head spinning as I struggled to rise. When I finally stumbled to my feet, I saw that Kale and Arya were gone, lost in the chaos of the battle. Zarin stood before me, his eyes blazing with triumph. "You should have surrendered," he sneered, his hand raised to deliver the final blow, but I would not fall so easily. With a fierce cry, I launched myself at the sorcerer, determined to end this fight once and for all. I charged forward, my sword flashing in the dim light of the burning city. Zarin sneered at me, his eyes blazing with confidence, but I refused to back down. Kale and Arya fought on either side of me, their movements fluid and precise as we danced around the sorcerer. Zarin's magic raged on, a torrent of darkness that threatened to consume us all. I felt the air thicken with malevolent energy, but I pushed forward, my determination fueled by the thought of reclaiming our world. The battle raged on, our blades clashing in a blur of steel and fire. I parried and riposted, my movements swift and deadly, but Zarin's power was relentless. He seemed to draw energy from the very flames that engulfed the city, his magic growing stronger with every passing moment. I stumbled back, gasping for breath, as Zarin's power surged forward. Kale and Arya rallied to my side, their faces grim with determination. We knew we were running out of time. The city was burning to ashes, and our chances of victory dwindled with every passing moment. But I refused to give up. I searched for a weakness, a glimmer of hope in the darkness that surrounded us. And then I saw a faint flicker of uncertainty in Zarin's eyes. I took a deep breath, my heart pounding in my chest. This was our last stand, our final chance to reclaim our world. With a fierce cry, I launched myself at Zarin, my sword flashing in the dim light. The sorcerer sneered at me, his eyes blazing with confidence, but I saw the faintest glimmer of doubt in his gaze. I knew I had to exploit it, to drive home the attack and shatter his defenses once and for all. Kale and Arya fought on either side of me, their movements fluid and precise as we wove a dance of death around Zarin. The battle raged on, our blades clashing in a blur of steel and fire, but I knew I was getting close. I could feel it, the weight of our world's fate hanging in the balance, and I was ready to do whatever it took to save it. With a final, desperate cry, I struck the final blow. My sword flashed in the dim light, biting deep into Zarin's defenses. The sorcerer stumbled back, his eyes wide with shock and fear as I stood over him, my sword raised high. For a moment the world seemed to hold its breath. The flames paused in their destruction, the city's ruins frozen in time. And then, in a burst of light and energy, Zarin's power collapsed. The city's flames died down, the ruins quiet and still. I stood panting, my sword still raised high. As Kale and Arya approached me, their faces grim with exhaustion. We had done it. We had saved our world. But as I looked around at the ruins of our once thriving city, I knew that our work was far from over. The city lay in ashes, our people scattered and broken. We had saved our world, but at what cost? I sheathed my sword, my heart heavy with the weight of our victory. We had won, but at what price?